talk I'm giving tonight is based on something I presented in at WordCamp Lisboa last year. Basically, when I first came here to Norway, I came here from New Zealand, obviously, and the internet there is shockingly bad. And when I came here to Norway, I discovered the internet here is like probably around 1,000 times faster than what I was used to. And so what I thought was a fast website before, it turned out it really wasn't. And it's blindingly noticeable once you come here if your website is extremely slow. In my case, I don't know, do you have the expression in Norwegian of the tortoise and the hare?
Yeah.
See some nods, okay, this isn't a foreign concept. So it turned out my website was definitely in the tortoise section. I just didn't realize it. It's a little bit input. Jump a bit slightly. There was last year here at one of the meetups. Somehow I ended up standing in the front talking about performance at the time, and I was giving away all of this advice, which I figured was all true, but at the same time people were saying, well, how do you do it on your website? And I'd have to say, I do none of this stuff I'm advising you about. My site is actually possibly the slowest website the world has ever seen. And yeah, that was a little, it makes it awkward to speak at any level of, I don't know, what's the word? Not professionalism, but
Credibility?
authority, credibility, yeah. If your website itself sucks, which is the case with mine. Now, obviously the main thing which controls how fast your website loads is the hosting. So I started off on one of these hostgator.com accounts. It's not the cheapest possible web host you can get, but it's definitely at the lower end of the price spectrum. I'm sure a lot of you are probably using sites similar to this, either HostGator or GoDaddy or any of these very cheap hosts, and they all seem to load web pages fine. But if you get hit with any reasonable level of traffic, I got kicked off the service eventually. I hit something like 300,000 page views in 1 month, and woke up one morning and my site was disappeared off the internet because they very promptly kicked me off when they realized I was using something like 40% of the resources on a dirt cheap server. So if you want to provide any level of scale to your website, any reasonable amount of traffic, don't do this. These cheap sites are hosted cheap obviously for a reason, and that reason is that they will kick you off if you use up any of their resources whatsoever. That led to a very frantic day actually. I'm like, my website's down. It's up. My solution was to move to this company on the bottom there called Uberhost. I got a really good deal on this, but they were normally $100 a month, I think. This is not a particularly good server, but they gave me an incredibly good service. Basically, I paid my $100 a month. I had no trouble serving the 300,000 page views a month that I was getting at the time. But eventually this company kind of collapsed. I think the owner decided to retire or something, and then the hardware started failing, and then they shut the company down, and then I realized I had a major problem at that point. And that was also around the same time where I moved to lovely sunny Norway. And this slide was for Portugal actually, not for here. So when I moved here, I just noticed my site was loading stupidly slow. So I went to kingdom.com and ran this test and realized I was getting 74 out of 100, which is not very good. It's not the worst you could possibly be, but it's hard to get much worse unless you're doing something really stupid.
Where did you test it?
Kingdom.com.
Kingdom.
Yeah.
Okay.
They actually provide a lot more information than just this. There's a whole barrage of little graphs, useful information it spits out, and it tells you exactly where you've gone wrong. Most of my problem was actually in just the actual generation of the HTML. The server was so slow that it couldn't spit the pages out fast enough. A lot of people have been using this company, wpengine.com. they claim they serve pages blisteringly fast and they can serve huge amounts of traffic. I'm sure they can serve huge amounts of traffic, but just moving to WP Engine was only going to bump me up from about 74 out of 100 to 80 out of 100. To actually go any further than that, I was going to have to do a bunch of other manual configuration changes, which I'll get to in a second. So these guys are useful, and they're basically a massive upgrade on HostGator.com and some of these other services, but they're not a bullet to making your site go a lot faster. So my next step, and I knew what I needed to do, but I did not know how to do it. So I bought a Linode box. This big L up here is for the company Linode. That's only $20 a month. And all of the experts I talked to said I should be able to serve probably a couple of thousand times as much traffic as I was on my $100 a month host that I've been using, which at that point was failing. And actually, I was actually having hardware failures, and they had to shut my site down for hours at a time and then move me over to another box. And that happened multiple times. But yeah, I knew nothing about setting up a server at all. I tried and that didn't work well at all. So I had this theory, I knew of a crazy guy in Latvia, who I'm looking at right now, and conveniently, I managed to convince him to come work here at Metronet. And he knew how to set up a server. So I spent a lot of time bugging him and plying him with beer, which I actually just noticed I've still got sitting in my apartment, which I never gave to you because you never came over for helping set up the server. So yeah, I went from basically $100 a month to $20 a month, and we set it up with Nginx instead of Apache. Nginx was, I'm not sure exactly how much faster it runs, but it's considerably faster than when you're running Apache. Set up PHP running something called APC. APC can be used for handling caching on your site, and a lot of you would use WP Super Cache or W3 Total Cache. If you run APC on the server, instead of things like W3 Total Cache needing to pull pages out of a file on the disk, it pulls it directly from what's called an APC cache on the server. And as far as I know, that most of the time pulls it directly from RAM, which is a lot faster to serve the pages blisteringly quick. You can't do this on pretty much any shared host. You need to get your own VPS to do this. Yeah, so APC is awesome. I don't actually like using the two plugins I just mentioned, WP Super Cache or W3 Total Cache. I actually use something called Fat Cache, which is it's actually used on WordPress.com. So I figured that's a good sign that it can scale massively, because I've got what, 30, 40 million sites now, I think, and serves some insane, probably billions of page views an hour. So this thing is designed to work even at massive scales. The cool thing about that cache is that it's basically just one tiny little file which you dump inside your website, and you can manually configure it. It's definitely the geekier option to handling caching on your website, but it's very nice once you use it. Next problem I had was the server was serving pages blisteringly fast, but I was also serving all of the images, all of the CSS, and all of the JavaScript. There's no point in me serving all that off of my main server. So my solution to that was to use Amazon CloudFront. Anybody here not know what CloudFront is? Okay. Basically, it's a service where it's kind of like a load. How to describe it? Basically, I take all of the images from my server and I serve them directly from Amazon CloudFront. And what it does is basically like a caching layer. Instead of me serving the images off my server every time somebody comes to visit the page, people visit the CloudFront URL, and that only requests it off of my server once, and then the CloudFront service handles serving more from then on until the cache expires. So basically, once an hour, it pulls these images and CSS and JavaScript and so forth off my server. So I can serve as much and this can handle insane amounts of traffic. So as soon as I moved to this, I could, images, CSS, JavaScript had no impact on me at all. All I need to pay is, I think it's about $5 a month now I pay US dollars for the CloudFront service, whereas if I was serving them off of my own server, it would cost a lot more. These guys can handle scaling to massive size really, really well. And after doing all of that, I did another Kingdom.com test. 97 out of 100 after doing all that. Theoretically, I could get that to 100 out of 100, but it requires a bunch of jumping through hoops that I couldn't be bothered with.
There was some mention about custom plugin on the last slide.
Was it? Oh, right. Yeah, to use a CDN, you need to run a plugin to, basically you need to change all of the URLs for all of your images on your site. So in my case, on my blog, ryanhellyer.net, I needed to change the image URLs to, I can make it say files.ryanhellyer.net, and then I'll point that subdomain at CloudFront. Basically, I made a custom plugin to do it because it's a pretty basic plugin to make, but there's also this WP Stack, which Mark Jaquith, one of the core developers of Wordpress, made, which you can use if you don't want to custom build your own plugin for the purpose. So then I got 97 out of 100, which was a substantial jump from 74 out of 100, and left me not quite so embarrassed about my own site. If you go and test it right now, I think it gets like 84 out of 100 or something. That's because I also constantly fiddle with my own site, and I made it worse. The last time I gave this talk, I think it was actually higher than that. It was actually, the number even says 98 out of 100. So that's basically that's the factor of me playing with my site. Some of you may have heard of varnish caching. I've never tried this, but I've been told by people who know far more than I do that if I want to serve absolutely insane amounts of traffic, I need to use something like this. Basically, that's actually a server-side program which runs on the server, and I don't know the technical details of how it works, but basically it serves whole pages much, much faster than I can manually. Now, all of this is all good and well doing this test with Pingdom.com, and it tells me roughly how fast it thinks my site is, but that's only how fast it is if it's handling one person at a time. What I really wanted to do was make sure that my site could handle lots of traffic. And so this company, Blitz.io, provides a service where you can actually load test your own website. And I got in touch with them about giving my talk in Portugal, and they actually gave me a free chance to use their upgraded service, and I got access to 50,000 users, which I was able to send at my website in a basically big massive traffic straight to my site. And it promptly, this is good, I didn't actually put up the demo of it actually breaking, but if I go past about 500 users, it dies spectacularly. Basically this graph is just showing requests per second, and it goes all the way up to handling 500 people visiting the site at any one time, and after that it kind of dies off. I'm assuming my personal blog is probably never going to get more than 500 people per second visiting it, and if it does, I will be extremely happy. Yeah, this is my old site. 29 views per minute. What actually happened was once it hit 29 views for the 1 minute, it just I'm not even sure why it did it. It just kind of died and then didn't load anything for like the next minute. It completely locked the thing up. So moving from, what was it? 207 page views per second up from 29 per minute. Okay. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that. So a lot of these people keep telling me that varnish will allow me to serve even more than this, because faster is always better. So I started looking into that, and the problem is that my Linode server can only handle, well, it officially says it can handle 100 megabits per second bandwidth, when I tested it, I couldn't get it to go beyond about 60. And at roughly the number of page views that I can serve per second was about 54 anyway, so even if I could serve the pages faster, I wasn't going to be able to serve any more than I could anyway, because that was as fast as the server went. So although all these people say that Varnish is great and useful, I don't actually see any practical use for me unless I go to a server with way more bandwidth. This is capitalized site. In his case, he's got the 700 page views per second, and I think most of that is caused by the fact that he's been very careful to make sure that the HTML on his page is extremely small. And so he doesn't have a bandwidth cap until way past where mine does. Mine has a lot more HTML on it. So if you want to have a really, really simple way to handle more traffic, put less junk on the page. Because that'll work pretty well. As everybody would think. Like at this point I got a little obsessed with going faster and faster and faster, so I wanted to try and go as fast as it was humanly possible. So the next thing is a demo of something which I like the idea of doing, but I haven't actually put into real practices yet. Back to Amazon CloudFront. Now CloudFront can serve things like static files, images, JavaScript, CSS really, really well, and is used by some absolutely massive sites who want to scale massively big. What I discovered was that you don't, even though they only advertise it as being intended for serving static assets, if you actually point it at your primary domain, you can actually serve your entire website from Amazon CloudFront. So I figured if I can do that, then technically I should be able to serve the entire website via CloudFront, and my server would not even have to do anything. Once an hour I would need to load a page, and the rest of the time this CloudFront service would handle serving all the pages. Catch with doing that is Amazon CloudFront can't handle things like post requests, and that's basically how things like forms work on your website. And also can't handle cookies, they can't handle many different things. So you wouldn't actually be able to log into your website. You wouldn't be able to log into the admin panel. You wouldn't be able to have forms submitting on your website. So the way I got around that was by writing a custom plugin which allows me to use this clouddemo.ryanhellyer.net as for the admin panel. So if I want to go to the admin panel for the site, I go to clouddemo.ryanhellyer.net/wp-admin. But the front end of the site is on this cloudfront.ryanhellyer.net. There's nothing actually useful on the site, it's just a demo of how the system works. And when I did this, I managed, hovering around sort of 7,000 to 8,000 users at a time with 1,500 page views per second. That's where it maxed out. Anything beyond there, it seemed to sort of tail off a bit. The interesting thing is that the page loads were down to 6 milliseconds per page, which is like nuts. I've never seen anything else actually run that fast before. And the really weird thing is this graph doesn't show it properly, but if I did a slower move into this, it actually starts off at around 500 milliseconds per page view, but the more traffic you throw at it, it actually goes faster. Because I think Amazon must provide some system where it detects when more traffic is going to a page and it throws more resources at it or caches it, or there's something internally that we can't see from here but they're doing, and speeds it right up to this 6 milliseconds. I was very happy with that. There's some really annoying problems with it though. Comments, particularly annoying problem, because with comments you actually need to have submit a form on the page. You go to the comment section, punch in your form, hit bam. Well, this CloudFront can't handle forms, so there's a critical problem with it. And this is where things like Discuss come in really very handy. I don't know how many of you have used Discuss or have used it before. I don't actually like Discuss very much in some ways because it looks kind of ugly and it's hard to style, but it allows you to add in a little JavaScript block on your page, and all of the handling of the comments is then loaded off onto the discuss.com service. So you can have your CloudFront hosted domain with discuss comments, and that gets around the comments problem. There are some crazy things you can do where you can have your comments form submitting to another domain which isn't hosted on CloudFront, and then redirect them back. And I have got a test of that working, but it's kind of janky and it looks a bit weird because the URL changes depending on whether you just left a comment or not. We're going to talk about that. Okay. Next thing was, I have a rather shady friend I knew in New Zealand. I don't trust him very much, but he's quite useful for when it comes to testing out load on websites. Because as far as I can tell, in his spare time, he actually tries to take down websites by attacking them with botnets. And so I told him, you have permission to attack my website. And him and a bunch of his friends had a good go at my website, trying to take it down. And they did manage to take down my main site, ryanhellyer.net, briefly, but they said it was a pain. But they couldn't take down the CloudFront site, no matter how hard they tried. So apparently it's botnet proof, which really annoyed me. He declared that there was no way I could make something botnet proof. That's the last slide. Does anybody have any questions?
Did you look at Cloudflare?
Yes. I haven't actually used it.
You should.
Yeah. I'd like to know whether it can handle more traffic than CloudFront or not, but I'm not sure.
But it can handle posting and all that stuff. That
Yeah,
you got
it can
to
sit in front.
hack around.
Yeah, I heard some problems. They had some security problems a while ago or something, but I'm not sure how serious that was. Basically, I wanted to try and do something in it, but it's against the CloudFront. I wasn't even doing it for a practical reason, to be honest. But I would love to know whether Cloudflare can handle the same sort of traffic. But I don't actually know. But yeah, I've definitely thought about it.
Maybe this is for Casper, but Google's, is it mod page speed?
Yeah, that's if you're running Apache.
Yeah. You know anything about it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I was thinking about setting it up.
Yeah, you can, if you're running Apache on your server, then ModSpeed, that is a module for Apache provided by Google, will do all kinds of magic things to your CSS files and JavaScript files and compressing things when they should be compressed and not compressing when they shouldn't, like out of the box, just by installing the module. But I think you need at least a VPS server, so a box where you can install whatever you want, basically.
Yeah, I have my own box, so.
Yeah.
Does it do anything that we can't manually do ourselves in WordPress?
Not really. You can do all of that with either a configuration of Nginx box, the way WordPress responds to requests, and it makes it easier. It's basically a go-to solution for those who don't want to do anything. They just want to throw a solution. That is a partial solution, but it's still better than what you probably have at the moment. So if you're running an Apache box, that's a good way to start, I think.
What do you think the difference between that and Nginx?
I think it just depends, like even Nginx is nothing magical about it.
Yeah.
It depends if your site is actually dynamic or not.
It's dynamic.
If it is dynamic, then you're not gaining that much by switching to Nginx. Apache can do a lot of things really well, and it's doing it well. When you start serving static files and more things that don't change, at that point maybe Nginx would be preferable solution, but other than that, not really.
It seems like it's quite can't really compare that to Nginx, really, can you? They're two totally different things.
Yeah,
Really?
but it's like the result of
servers
the
themselves.
yeah.
Any more questions?
I'm not sure about the Linode thing maxing out, because I have done video streaming from Linode box, and that one handled much more than 60 megabits per second. But that's
Was it more than 100 megabits?
yeah,
Was it maybe then that you were on a more expensive package than I'm on? Because my official limit,
I'm on the second.
yeah, I'm on the first, so maybe you just had a higher limit. Because the actual cap on mine was listed as 100 megabits per second.
Okay.
And could you actually sustain that 100 megabits or more than 60? Because I think I would assume that they would throw you up.
Oh no! They sent me an email and they said, no, you're way over, and it was running, but they sent that email like 2 hours after I had the stream, and then I said, yeah, I actually have a very big burst traffic, and then they said, oh, okay, that's okay, then we will actually move you to another server, and then they did that.
So, but that was not permanent. You couldn't do that for a month.
No, it's only live video streaming, so it's
Alright.
only once every month.
Yeah. Cool.
The way I tested the maximum download speed was to push files from my server to Amazon. So it's possible there was a bottleneck there. I assumed it was the server was the bottleneck, but I could have been wrong.
If it's only one IP you're pushing to, then maybe they're too throttling on.
I did it to multiple I was pushing to multiple Amazon S3 accounts at the same time. So maybe, not sure. That squeal sounded like it's some pizzas on the way. Cool. Any more questions or? No. Thank you very much.